In South Korea, couples often make silent but meaningful gestures when in public. One of them is sitting together on the same side when eating out. Although it may seem common, this detail actually speaks volumes in that culture. It's not a coincidence or a meaningless custom. Sitting on the same side, rather than facing each other, expresses intimacy, trust, and a desire to be together. It's an indirect way of saying, "I want you by my side, close to me." When you observe Taehyung and Jungkook, this gesture is repeated so consistently that it ceases to be casual. Over the years, regardless of whether they were in a restaurant, on a film set, or on broadcasts, they always choose the same side, the same corner, the same shared space. And this isn't a strategy or part of a script. It's a custom that has become natural between them and has a very clear cultural weight. This behavior connects directly with the idea that there is an intimate relationship between them that doesn't need to be explained with words. Instead of statements or interviews, the details speak. And in this case, that detail communicates that there is a strong bond between them, a constant desire to share the moment, to be close, and to show themselves as a whole. This also gives clear signals to those familiar with how body language works in Korean culture. It's important to note that it's not just about how they feel, but when and why they do it. They don't do it when no one is watching, they do it even when there are cameras. That's a silent affirmation. Jungkook and Taehyung could easily change places or act according to what is expected of them in a public context. But they don't. They prefer to remain themselves, even if it raises suspicions. This constant and consistent act shows that they are not faking. It's not an act. It's part of their real way of living together. Since they began their journey together in BTS, Jungkook has maintained a very particular attention toward Taehyung. Over the years, this behavior hasn't disappeared, rather, it has persisted and even become more visible. What's interesting is that Jungkook's gestures aren't common among people who only share work time. He repeats certain actions only with Taehyung, and those actions aren't just insignificant details. They're clear signs of closeness, attachment, care, and a connection established over time. One gesture that has been seen on many occasions is the way Jungkook smiles when Taehyung speaks. His expression isn't just a random smile, it's a direct response to what Taehyung is saying, as if he's always listening attentively. This reaction occurs constantly and without needing to be provoked. Added to this is the way he applauds everything Taehyung does, as if celebrating all his achievements, no matter how small. It's a very direct way of showing pride, support, and emotional presence. Another characteristic is the way he looks at you. It's not a quick or neutral glance. It's a specific way of observing someone you care about. From the very beginning, that gaze has been consistent. It hasn't changed over time, which indicates that the feeling behind that way of looking at you hasn't changed either. For many people, these patterns may seem like simple habits. But when someone repeats the same gestures with just one person, it's no coincidence. For years, we've noticed how Jungkook reacts differently around Taehyung. In normal situations, he can be playful, even a little impulsive, but when Taehyung enters the scene, something in him changes. During the show, Are You Sure? There was a moment when Jungkook made a rather strong gesture toward Jimin in a tone that seemed playful. However, the energy changed completely when Taehyung, who was very close, intervened. He didn't do it directly or exaggeratedly. His presence alone was enough to make Jungkook tone down the intensity. He didn't need to raise his voice or make serious gestures. The simple fact that he was there and spoke softly was enough to calm Jungkook immediately. These kinds of reactions aren't random, nor do they happen to everyone. They only happen when there's such a strong bond that a word is enough to set things right. Jungkook, despite having an active and often dominant personality in other situations, displays a much calmer demeanor when Taehyung is around. It's as if he knows he can let go of all control, because Taehyung has him covered. This isn't created out of nowhere, nor is it rehearsed. It's a couple's dynamic, where one partner remains calm while the other confidently gives in. It was also evident when Jungkook directly asked Taehyung where he was. Taehyung didn't answer in a random way, he used a soft phrase, saying he was practicing. The way Jungkook calmly received that answer shows that this wasn't just a normal conversation. It was an interaction where Jungkook leaned emotionally on Taehyung. His tone was passive, calm, and receptive. There was no trace of distrust or doubt. When Taehyung and Jungkook are together, their way of communicating changes. They don't need to speak to be understood. Their eyes, their movements, and the way they approach each other form a silent language that many people don't notice at first glance. But those who pay attention see it very clearly. Every time Jungkook looks at Taehyung, there is a direct connection. It's not a normal look, not even when they're surrounded by other people. It's a way of looking that conveys something deeper, as if by doing so alone they are telling each other something important. When they look at each other, their expressions soften, their bodies relax, and the atmosphere around them changes. That reaction can't be faked. Besides the looks, there's a pattern in the way they touch each other. It's not physical teasing or simple games. There's a kind of physical contact between them that goes beyond the casual. Touching a shoulder, holding a hand, resting a head, or simply staying close unnecessarily, all of this is part of a private code. They do this regardless of whether there are cameras or not, whether there's an audience or whether they're alone. Their constant physical closeness indicates a very deep trust. This type of body language isn't taught or forced. It's something that emerges when there's an established relationship. In Taekook's case, it's clear that his gestures aren't meant to attract attention. They're spontaneous, repetitive, and very natural. This naturalness reveals that they've spent a long time building a unique way of communicating, just for them. It's also important to mention how they move when they're together. There's a synchronicity in their movements, a way of adapting to each other's pace, of accommodating each other. This isn't rehearsed, it's the result of sharing many moments and knowing each other well. Anyone who has experienced a close relationship understands that this kind of coordination only appears when there's a strong emotional connection. In Korean culture, certain gestures carry a very deep meaning. Sharing physical space, repeating patterns of behavior, or staying close in public moments are signs that are interpreted as expressions of sincere affection. In the case of Taehyung and Jungkook, this repetition of gestures has not only been constant, but has also been part of the way they interact in public. This hasn't been an accident, nor something seen once and gone. It's a pattern built over time. One of the most repeated gestures between them is the fearless physical pursuit. When they are together, there's no doubt that their bodies lean toward each other, they settle naturally, and they share the same space without discomfort. These details have been repeated for years. They don't change with the cameras or the presence of other people. This indicates that what happens between them isn't based on outward display, but on what's really happening between them. It's also important to notice how they look at each other. The gaze is a very powerful tool, especially when it's repeated with the same person over years. In Taekook's case, there's an intensity that isn't seen with other people. That way of observing, of holding each other's gaze, has a message. And when that message appears again and again, it makes it clear that this isn't a temporary performance. It's a communication without words. Repeated movements also make a difference. Touching each other's arms, adjusting their clothes, leaning on each other, these are actions they've displayed many times. And they're not imitations of others, nor are they coordinated movements based on a script. They're reactions born from habit, from intimacy, from the comfort of being with someone who's already part of their daily emotional routine. The relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook needs no labels or public explanations. The connection that unites them goes beyond what is said with words. Their actions, repeated over the years, show that their relationship is neither a coincidence nor a misunderstanding. Taehyung fans have long observed how every interaction between them reinforces the idea that their bond is deep, solid, and real. They don't have to prove it, because their gestures do it for them. There are ways of touching each other, ways of seeking each other out, of listening to each other, that only appear when there is intimate trust. When Jungkook approaches Taehyung, his body shows no tension. When Taehyung touches him, there is no surprise or discomfort. On the contrary, there is habit. That kind of trust doesn't appear overnight, nor can it be faked. It's the kind of connection that forms over time, when two people are used to being close together. The most important thing is that it never feels forced. In every presentation, behind the scenes, interviews, or special videos, there are moments when you can see how they relate in a special way. Taehyung is usually the one who initiates contact, the one who guides. Jungkook, for his part, always responds openly. He seems comfortable, confident, and unafraid to show that closeness. He doesn't hide it or exaggerate it, he simply experiences it. And although at times they have tried to deny that connection, each new appearance together reaffirms it. Because even if they try to avoid certain gestures in public, there are details that escape their control. Quick glances that last longer than expected. Smiles directed only at each other. Immediate reactions that are only triggered when they are next to each other. In those moments, there is no doubt that what exists between them is more than visible.